Hi, I'm Vance Brown, and I'm really glad you're here. So perhaps your kid just told you they're done with Christianity. Maybe they dropped the bomb over dinner saying, I just can't believe in a God who tortures people forever. Now you're panicked, fearing for their very salvation and undoubtedly losing sleep. Did you fail as a parent? Is your child going to hell? Take a deep breath. You're not alone. And honestly, they may be onto something that deserves a calm discussion. The stories we tell about God shape our worldview, our relationships, and our mental well being. Many attribute to Albert Einstein the quote, the most important question we can ask is the universe a friendly place? Also, well known evangelical A.W. Tozer said something similar. He wrote, what comes into our minds when we think of God is the most important thing about us. The way we answer shapes not just our faith and philosophy, but how we experience everything. If at our very core we don't believe that God has our back and is benevolent, then life can feel hopeless. If we have a narrative of a God of wrath and punishment, it may feel that he doesn't have our back. This project is called Recover Christianity, and it exists to walk alongside people who are questioning, deconstructing, or rebuilding their Christian faith, especially parents seeking common ground and a healthy relationship with their children in the midst of these conversations. Well, I grew up in the heart of the Bible Belt in North Carolina, deeply immersed in evangelical Christianity. I love the church, typically going 3 times a week. I memorized scripture, I believe wholeheartedly, and for many years my faith gave me structure, meaning, and community. I genuinely am grateful for that foundation. Along the way, I also inherited some fear-based narratives about God that caused me a lifetime of generalized anxiety. Yet that narrative was what I passed on along to my children also. Everything changed for me when my oldest son told me he no longer believed in God, a God who would torture his children for an eternity without any hope of redemption. To him, that was incongruent and made no sense. That moment forced me to choose between being right and being in relationship, between defending a system I had learned and loving my child. I realized something very important that day. Real faith conversations only happen when we are willing to listen and willing to change. I'm a lawyer by training, and I've used that training to research all the assumptions that I grew up with. As an evangelical, I'd never even seen or studied much church history before Martin Luther. I think that was like in 1517 in that Protestant Reformation. So most of our Christian history I had totally ignored. I also do some mediation to help resolve legal disputes. And one thing I've learned as a mediator is that when people enter a conversation convinced that they are 100% right, have an absolute certitude, there's no room for common ground. And the mediation ends in what is called an impasse, which means just both parties walk away and wait for the courtroom. But when people are willing to listen, really listen, something new can emerge. Healing becomes possible in the relationships. And not only is it common ground found, but higher ground can be found because the relationships are preserved. Recover Christianity is about creating that kind of space as we ask some of the big questions of our faith. You'll also notice in the backdrop of a lot of my videos here, this logo called the Eagle and Child. This comes from a pub in Oxford, England, which was the gathering place for writers, including C.S. Lewis, who was a well-known Protestant, and J.R.R. Tolkien, a devout Roman Catholic, and their friends of various religious traditions. They called themselves the Inklings, and they met regularly to have honest conversations about faith, doubt, story, and meaning. The place also is affectionately called the Bird and the Baby, based on this image of an eagle gently carrying this child. For me, that image is a perfect metaphor for what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to create. A space that is strong enough to carry the big questions, but gentle enough to hold people with care. A place where curiosity is welcome, doubts are not punished, and conversations can unfold without fear. Recover Christianity is meant to be that kind of space. secure, thoughtful, and safe enough to grow personally. This project explores the big questions of Christianity, honestly and historically. These are some of the questions that my son and I have explored over the past 10 years after he told me that he had become an atheist. Questions like, is God really a God of wrath? Are we inherently good or bad? Is Jesus the only way? Is the Bible inerrant? What does that even mean? And what about pain and suffering? Perhaps most important, is Christianity even worth holding on to? Perhaps we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we can return to the Christian tradition, hopefully even more passionate about Jesus than ever before. And that's the outcome for my son and me. So we ask you to join us on this journey. We'll look at scripture, early church history, theology, and most importantly, the life and teachings of Jesus himself. This space is not here to tear down Christianity, but to rebuild and recover it around love, mercy, and transformation, rather than just fear and punishment. I'll be challenging some of the narratives that are not what the early church believed, so that we can open the possibility that one can be a Christian while having some different beliefs and viewpoints. This is where we can find common ground. Recover Christianity isn't about having all the answers. The bottom line is that no one has a backstage pass to the afterlife. It's all theory. But I personally believe that many Christian denominations and non-denominations have gotten off the original message and teaching of Jesus, and certainly departed a lot from what the early church believed. So this project will be about recovering a faith worth believing in, a faith centered and reconstructed around the life and love of Jesus. If that resonates with you, I'm really glad you're here. So let's recover Christianity together.